I was bound to a strange system. The more cowardly I acted, the more money I made. I didn't realize how literal that rule was until my very first day at Northline Group. Do you seriously think that skirt is appropriate for work? Karen Blake's voice cut through the open office, sharp and casual at the same time, the kind of tone only someone in power could afford. Her eyes swept over me. Slowly, deliberately, like she was inspecting a defect. My mind went blank for half a second. Then a sound rang inside my head, cold and mechanical. The coward system has been successfully activated. Fear level, 0 out of 100. Reward rule. The more cowardly the host behaves, the greater the financial reward. Additional effect. Any malice directed toward the host will rebound under the law of conservation. I swallowed hard. What kind of nightmare had I just signed into? Well, Karen crossed her arms. Who exactly are you trying to show off to? I looked around instinctively. Rows of desks. Blue-lit monitors. The steady clacking of keyboards. The smell of burnt coffee and recycled air. Everything was painfully normal. I was the only thing out of place. A translucent prompt flickered in my vision. Suggested action. Display believable cowardice. I lowered my head immediately. I'm sorry, I said, forcing my voice to shake. This is my fault. Her eyebrow twitched. Your fault for what? I hesitated just long enough to seem genuinely panicked, then answered softly, for existing where you can see me. The entire floor went silent. Someone near the window sucked in a sharp breath. Another person coughed to hide a laugh. Karen froze for a split second before letting out a cold chuckle. You think talking like that is going to make me go easy on you? I nodded too fast, eyes wide, hands clenched in front of me like a guilty child. Yes. No. I mean, I don't know. I'm sorry. Then I did something even I hadn't planned. Fully. I raised my hand, trembling, like I was about to slap myself. If you think I'm inappropriate, I said, tears pooling on cue, then maybe I shouldn't be here at all. My gaze landed on the heavy metal stapler on her desk. I can fix it. I lunged forward. Hey, what are you doing? Chairs scraped violently as people jumped up. Someone grabbed my wrist just as I lifted the stapler toward my neck. It slipped from my fingers and clattered across the desk. Karen's face drained of color. Are you out of your mind? I stared at her blankly, then burst into sobs. I have a condition, I cried. Please don't look down on me. I just want to fit in. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Fear melted into pity. Pity turned into accusation. Hands rested on my shoulders. Someone murmured for me to calm down. More than a few people turned to look at Karen, their expressions no longer neutral. She cleared her throat awkwardly. I was just joking. Don't take it so seriously. I looked up at her with red, watery eyes and managed a grateful smile. Oh, you were joking. She relaxed visibly. You're really kind. Then I tilted my head. Slightly innocent and earnest. By the way, Karen, you have something green stuck in your teeth. For one full second, the office was frozen. Then laughter exploded. Karen slapped a hand over her mouth, her face flushing white, then red. I'm just kidding, I added softly. You wouldn't get upset over a small joke, right? She glared at me, speechless, then spun around and stormed off. As she passed, she leaned in close and whispered through clenched teeth, you little bitch. Just wait. My legs went weak. Tears spilled again, perfectly timed. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Fear level increased. Reward issued, $15,000. I covered my face with both hands, shoulders shaking, while a coworker patted my back. Don't take it to heart, she whispered. That's just how Karen is. I nodded obediently, biting the inside of my cheek to keep from smiling. Because in that moment, I understood something very clearly. I wasn't weak. I had just found the most profitable role in this entire company. From that day on, I understood exactly how to survive at Northline Group. I learned when to lower my eyes, how much my voice should tremble, and which moments required tears and which only needed silence. Karen Blake became my most reliable source of income. Every sarcastic comment, every sideways glance, every deliberate attempt to humiliate me translated neatly into money deposited straight into my account. I played my role flawlessly. When she slammed documents onto my desk and hissed that I was useless, I flinched. When she mocked my clothes during meetings, I apologized. When she blamed me for her own failed proposals, I bowed my head and took it all. The system chimed constantly, my balance growing faster than my confidence ever had. But the real turning point came when Richard Moore called me into his office. Richard was different from Karen. Older, smarter, careful. The kind of man who smiled while calculating how much he could take from you without leaving bruises. His office smelled of polished wood and expensive cologne, the blinds half closed to keep the city out. "Sit," he said calmly. I sat. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "You've been having trouble adjusting, haven't you?" My heart sped up. The system flickered, warning lights flashing. Faintly. "Yes," I whispered. He smiled. "That's normal. Young women like you tend to misunderstand professionalism." The word misunderstand made my stomach tighten. "You should learn." He continued, standing and walking around the desk, that cooperation makes life much easier. When he stopped behind me, the system screamed. Unauthorized proximity detected. Malice rising. Fear response recommended. Maximum. I stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor, and before he could touch me, I broke. I cried. Loudly. Ugly. Desperately. "Please don't come any closer," I sobbed. "I'm scared. I didn't do anything wrong. I just want to work." The door flew open. HR. A junior manager. Someone from accounting. Richard's face changed instantly. "Emily," he snapped. "Stop this nonsense." I collapsed to the floor, curling into myself. I'm sorry. I'll quit. I'll leave. Please don't hurt me." The system rang like an alarm bell inside my skull. Fear level, S rank. Reward pending. By the end of the day, Richard Moore was under internal investigation. By the end of the week, he was suspended. And by the end of the month, he was gone. The payout was enormous. But something else happened too. The company changed. Meetings became quieter. People spoke carefully around me. No one raised their voice. No one joked at my expense. Anymore. They looked at me the way you look at unstable glass, something that might shatter if touched wrong. And then Daniel West arrived. He didn't shout. He didn't sneer. He didn't look at me like prey. He simply watched. From the first day, the system hesitated around him. No alerts. No warnings. No rewards. When he spoke to me, my balance stayed the same. When I stumbled during presentations, he corrected me calmly. When I waited for humiliation, it never came. For the first time since the system appeared, I earned nothing. And that terrified me more than any insult ever had. I tried everything. I spoke more softly. I apologized unnecessarily. I even let my hands shake during reports. Daniel noticed, frowned slightly, and said, "Relax. You're doing fine. No money." The system flickered, unstable. Warning. Fear response ineffective. Target does not generate exploitable malice. I lay awake at night staring at my ceiling, my phone glowing with a balance large enough to buy freedom, yet my chest felt tight and hollow. Without cruelty to react to, I didn't know who I was anymore. One evening, Daniel asked me to stay late. "I'm not here to control you," he said quietly. "But I need to know something. Are you afraid here?" The honest answer burned my throat. "Yes," I said. "Of me?" "No," I admitted. "Of not being afraid." The system glitched. Violently. Conflict detected. System integrity compromised. From that point on, the notifications grew weaker. The rewards stopped entirely. And one night, after submitting a project I had completed without trembling hands or rehearsed tears, the system spoke for the last time. System termination initiated. Final compensation delivered. The transfer hit my account seconds later. The largest one yet. Then silence. No prompts. No alerts. No safety net. Just me. Life without the system was slower. Harder. Quieter. But it was real. I worked because I could. I spoke because I wanted to. When Daniel invited me to dinner, there were no calculations, no fear meters ticking in my head. Years later, standing on a balcony overlooking the city, I realized something simple and devastatingly clear. I hadn't escaped because I became brave. I escaped because I finally chose not to be afraid on purpose. And that choice, more than any system, any reward, any humiliation, was what truly made me free. Freedom didn't feel heroic the way I imagined it would. It felt quiet. Too quiet. For the first few months after the system vanished, I kept waiting for something bad to happen. Some sudden punishment for breaking the rules. Some invisible hand reaching out to drag me back into fear. But nothing came. Daniel treated me the same as before. The company stabilized. My name stopped being whispered in hallways. And that's when the nightmares started. I dreamed about Karen Blake standing over my desk again, smiling, asking me why I wasn't shaking anymore. I dreamed about Richard Moore's office door locking behind me. I woke up sweating, heart racing, instinctively reaching for my phone to check my balance. As if money could still save me. It couldn't. One evening, months later, I was packing up to leave when an unfamiliar name popped up in my inbox. No subject line. Just a single sentence. I think we've met before. My fingers hovered over the mouse. I hadn't replied to anything like this since the system days. Curiosity won. I opened it. Attached was a photo. It was old. Grainy. Taken from security footage. Me, on my first week at Northline Group, crouched on the floor, crying, clutching a stapler while people crowded around. My stomach dropped. The next email came seconds later. You really committed to the act. I closed my laptop so fast the screen went black. My heart pounded the way it used to when the system chimed. Except this time, there was no reward. Only dread. The following morning, Daniel noticed immediately. You look exhausted. I didn't sleep. He studied me for a moment. Do you want to tell me why? I hesitated. Old habits screamed at me to minimize, to smile, to say everything was fine. But I forced myself to speak. Someone contacted me. About before. Daniel's expression sharpened. Who? I don't know. That afternoon. The emails continued. Always short. Always calm. Always unsettling. You weren't the only one with a system. Some of us didn't get the luxury of turning ours off. Do you know what happens when people like you walk away? I stopped replying. I blocked the address. It didn't help. New accounts appeared. New messages. Then one day, during lunch, a woman sat across from me in the cafe. Downstairs without asking. She looked ordinary. Late 30s. Professional. Sharp eyes. You don't recognize me, she said. I shook my head slowly. That makes sense, she continued. You were busy crying. My blood went cold. My name is Rachel. She smiled faintly. My system rewarded obsession. Watching. Recording. Collecting leverage. I stood up. I don't want to talk to you. You already are. People moved around us, laughing, eating, unaware. Rachel leaned forward slightly. When you quit the game, you destabilized it. I didn't ask for any of this. Neither did I. Her eyes hardened. But you broke the balance. I walked away. My hands shook all the way back to the office. That night, Daniel insisted on walking me home. Halfway there, I finally told him everything. About the system. About the money. About the fear. About Rachel. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. You're not crazy. I know. But you're in danger. Rachel didn't threaten me outright. She didn't need to. She let me understand instead. People like us weren't anomalies. We were experiments. Some systems fed on fear. Others on rage. Envy. Shame. Control. When one host exited cleanly, it disrupted the entire ecosystem. You're proof that it's possible, she told me during our second unwanted meeting. And proof is dangerous. So, what do you want? To see how far you can go without it. The pressure mounted. Anonymous reports questioned my promotions. Old footage resurfaced online. Comments appeared calling me unstable, manipulative, a fraud. Fear clawed its way back into my chest. One night, alone in my apartment, I caught myself wishing, just for a second, that the system would come back. That familiar safety net of humiliation and reward. I hated myself for it. The breaking point came when Daniel was summoned by the board. Accusations, whispers, risk assessments. They wanted him to distance the company from me. I won't, he said simply. That choice cost him. Investors pulled back. Pressure increased. And for the first time, I realized something horrifying. My fear had protected me before. Now my courage was hurting someone else. Rachel's final message arrived the night before everything exploded. Tomorrow, you'll choose. I barely slept. In the morning, I stood in front of the mirror, looking at myself without trembling. No tears. No scripts. Just a woman who had learned how to survive one way and was now being forced to learn another. When I walked into the boardroom, every eye turned toward me. I took a breath and spoke. The room was silent when I finished speaking. Not the tense, hostile silence I remembered from the old days, but something heavier. The kind of quiet that happens when people realize they're standing at the edge of something they don't fully understand. The board members avoided my eyes. A few looked uncomfortable. One of them looked afraid. I didn't cry. I didn't apologize. I told them everything. Not dramatically. Not defensively. Just the truth, laid out plainly. About the systems. About how fear had once been a currency. About how I had used it and how I had walked away. I told them that if they believed my presence was a liability, they could fire me. I would accept it. But I would not pretend anymore. When I finished, my hands were steady. Daniel spoke next. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't defend me with emotion. He framed it as risk. Management, ethics, and long-term stability. He talked about cultures built on fear collapsing from the inside. He talked about transparency, about responsibility, about the cost of pretending. Problems don't exist. It took hours. When the meeting finally ended, no decision was announced. I stepped out of the room feeling strangely light, like I had already lost something and survived it. Rachel was waiting for me in the hallway. You chose the hard way, she said. I chose my way, I replied. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded once. Good. Then this is where my part ends. What happens now? I asked. That depends on how many people are willing to live without their systems. She walked away without another word, disappearing into the crowd of employees like she had never existed at all. The fallout was messy. There were investigations, quiet resignations, sudden policy changes that no one publicly explained. A few executives stepped down for personal reasons. Northline Group didn't collapse, but it did change. Slowly. Painfully. For the first time, fear stopped being an unspoken management tool. I stayed. Not because I needed the job. Not because I owed anyone anything. But because I wanted to see what a place looked like when people stopped being rewarded for hurting each other. Some days were harder than others. There were moments when old instincts flared up, when my body expected punishment and didn't know what to do with calm. But each time I chose to respond without shrinking, it got a little easier. Daniel and I didn't rush into anything. Trust, I learned, grows best when it isn't forced. We worked. We argued. We disagreed. And sometimes, late at night, we sat in silence together. Neither of us needing to fill it. Months later, an email arrived from an unfamiliar address. No threats. No riddles. Just a single line. System networks are going dormant. I closed the message. And didn't reply. Years passed. The nightmares faded. The reflex to apologize disappeared. The money in my account became just money, not proof of survival. I learned how to measure my worth in quieter ways. In finished projects. In honest conversations. In mornings where my heart didn't race before I even got out of bed. One evening, standing on a balcony overlooking the city lights, I felt Daniel's presence behind me. He wrapped a jacket around my shoulders, wordlessly. You know, he said softly, When I first met you, I thought you were the bravest person in the room. I laughed under my breath. I was terrified. Exactly, he replied. I leaned into him, watching the traffic below move like veins of light through the city. Somewhere out there, systems were sleeping. Somewhere, people were still trading fear for safety, silence for survival. I didn't judge them. I had been one of them once. But I wasn't anymore. I had learned that fear could make you rich, yes. But only courage lets you keep what actually matters. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for a signal, a reward, or permission to exist. I was just living.